I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And oh my God, it's back.
Finally.
I'm so happy that we're back. Not that it has been a chore to watch 100 episodes of Profiler while waiting for Criminal Minds to come back. But, we're here for Criminal Minds, fundamentally.
Yes.
I don't think there's
we
anything
can make
wrong
jokes
with saying
about
that.
being a Josh Stewart podcast,
but we're here for Criminal Minds, and I don't think
Yeah.
I don't think that that's something we have to deny. So it is back. And as promised, the first episode of the season is very much self-contained. There are some ongoing plot elements to it that we will talk about.
Yep.
But fundamentally, this is very much a self-contained story. It is a one killer who will see how it affects things going forward. And I'm definitely, we definitely see some hints as to what the future is going to be right at the end. But just taken as an episode, it is very much a classic Criminal Minds. We have a killer. They've dropped the middle victim.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that's an interesting choice because it gives us, they've seemed to have found a way to, space out the episodes to give us time for our ongoing plots and our character moments. And the secret was, get rid of the middle victim. You don't need a middle victim. You have the victim at the start, you have the victim they rescue. And the genius part about that is, by getting rid of the middle victim, it gives us more time to spend with the victim who gets rescued, which allows us to feel their terror more. I think it's a very good choice, and I want to see if they continue using this formula.
Well, yeah, and what you do to make it a serial killer is that he's killed five
in the past,
before.
Exactly. Like, we don't have to. It's honestly, I had never. You say that right. I had never made the connection that it's like, for years did they think that no one would believe these were serial killers if we didn't see them kill 3 people in the episode, or at least attempt to.
Yeah, I don't think we ever brought that up.
No,
but
it never came up. But now that they're down to 2 victims per week, or sets of victims.
Yeah.
Of course, are they really? Yeah, of course they're serial killers. They killed a bunch of people before. So, Ocean City, Maryland. It opens with a guy kidnapping someone in a parking lot and then convincing a cop to help him kidnap that guy. That cop, of course, will never see any ramifications, any problems for what he did. But had he simply asked to see some ID, that killer would have been probably caught immediately, and a guy's life and 2 people's lives would have been saved. So just putting it out there that maybe this cop should have done his job a little more carefully. Just putting that out there.
Okay, yeah, I did put it out there. I'm going. Well, hopefully that guy that cop realizes, or was he one of the cops that did find the guy and never said anything?
What do you mean?
Well, no, because once the guy is washed up on the beach.
Oh, was he one of the cops there? Oh God, I didn't even check that. Was he one of the cops on Ocean?
I think he was one of the cops, and he never said anything.
Oh, damn.
Which makes it even worse.
Yeah, that's cold, man. That's extra cold. That's brutal. Yeah, if he was one of the cops in that scene, oh my God. Yeah, that's not a great guy.
And I think that they kind of flashed on him. Could be wrong.
Hey, you know what? It's easy enough for us to check later. But so expect a report on that from us next week. But yeah, it's a good opening scene though. It's very well shot. It's very moody. It's very creepy. Again, I know we've been saying this for 3 seasons now, but the cinematography on this show is so far and away better than it ever has been in the past. It looks so much better. Yes,
yeah, they should have fired that guy earlier.
I know the fans will say that some of the fans will say it's too dark. And I get why they think it's a little too dark. I like the moodiness. I like the way you kind of feel a little uncomfortable all the time because you can't really see anything when the killers are doing their thing. I think it's a good choice, right? I really do. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it continues. I'm very happy with the new visuals. I think the office scenes look better. I think the field scenes look better. Yeah, they still haven't found a way to make broad daylight look good. But you know what? That's a challenge for anybody.
Yeah.
That's, by the way, making broad daylight look good is such a challenge that it is believed in Hollywood that there's only like 45 minutes around dawn and 45 minutes before around sunset where the light actually looks good. It's called golden hour. And it's twice a day.
Okay, you know what we were talking about before about Canadian films before we started the podcast?
Right.
I'm going, but I think Canadian films do an awful lot more of that daylight filming, and that may be why it's different.
Part of it, although I will say, I was talking with somebody recently about this in Vancouver. Like, the reason everything films in Vancouver and why it's so great to film in Vancouver is it's cloudy 24 hours a day. So you never have any harsh light or harsh shadows. So it's much easier to film since you never have to worry about matching the angles of the sun. You never have to worry about reflections, and you never have to worry about matching shadows. But it does, that Canadian, overcast look can create some very flat imagery. So yeah, it is definitely an issue people have to deal with.
Yeah. And then, but the other thing is that you look at like this one that I just watched. For sure, there was a lot of daylight filming.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean
some nighttime filming,
but it's tough, and that's why so many people, when they're doing daylight. I was just talking about watching the show Banshee, and they do a thing that a lot of shows do is they wash everything out. They try to make it look gritty. Well, they don't know how to deal with all this daylight filming and flat visuals, so they're like, okay, well, we're just going to massively desaturate all the colors, and that's the stylistic choice.
Yeah. The Canadian films don't generally
don't do that. And so you're left with this kind of, I'm going to say it, slightly cheap looking lighting. And I'm not going to be ashamed for saying that. It does look a little cheap. All right.
Yeah, it's very strange. Let's get back to Criminal Minds,
yes,
because I love this. Because I love the scene with the couple as they find the body.
Oh, such a good scene with the creep.
That was so good. The creep following the woman, at the they're at a beachside party, right? A nighttime party and stuff like that. And he just won't leave her alone.
It is literally a modern tribute to the movie Jaws.
Yes.
With modern politics and awareness of how toxic these situations can be. Made me really happy. I'm not going to pretend it didn't make me really happy.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. And then they find
the body.
And the guys look.
Yeah.
And then there's the body.
All right, so they find the body, and then right away, we have the team come up and explain the concept of being a profiler to the guy. Like, it's the first episode of the season. As crazy as it sounds, the show's been on 18 years. I know it sounds crazy. This was someone's first episode of Criminal Minds. And the episode is very aware of that fact. And consequently, we have to explain why he's there, what a signature is, what a profiler is. So, yeah. It is weird sometimes to think that any episode could be someone's first episode of Criminal Minds.
But I can tell you that there are people who only started watching Criminal Minds
when Evolution started. Absolutely.
When Evolution started, and then they have to go back.
Yeah, they have to go back
because they ignored it.
Oh yeah,
it
was never on their radar. It was just another CBS procedural. They didn't understand. Here's something different. Here's something special. Here's something interesting. But yeah, I like the little Jaws tribute at the start. That made me really happy. Then we get the team show up to explain the situation and talk about how the chests were stabbed to ensure that salt water flows into the body. And
this is what they think.
Yeah, they think. Oh no, and that is true. That is why they do it. But what we don't get in any of the first scenes, and so you remember how I really criticized them last season for saying we have no idea how this guy is subduing people in the Moving Day Killer episode. And then we find out he's pumping in carbon monoxide. And so I said, there's no conceivable way you couldn't know he was killing them with carbon monoxide, or subduing the carbon monoxide, because it turns your blood pink.
Yes.
Literally, it's insane if you see the color of carbon monoxide in blood. It turns people's whole body beet red, and it turns their blood pink. Like, you cannot not know it. And likewise, this time, they coyly, and I think it's, again, to not have the thing get solved too early for the audience, or to find out what's or have it be too easy for the team. we don't actually get a report on how this guy was killed, because this is their first victim that they found early enough that they've got the body relatively intact, as they say.
Because,
as Tyler says, there's predation, right?
Yeah.
Right, there's predation, and then there's just, the various bacteria in the water breaking down bodies. So they don't, but here they've got a fresh one. And what we never find out was that these guys drowned. Like, we don't get told that for a while.
yeah, because it doesn't look like they drowned.
Well, but here's the thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, because he's got all these stab wounds on him.
Exactly. And here's the thing I'm going to tell you. In the same way that the carbon monoxide, and this is just, I don't expect the show to be 100% accurate, but that's why we're here. In the same way that carbon monoxide turns your blood pink.
Yeah.
If you drown in chlorine is in chlorinated water. Chlorine is an incredibly harsh chemical that will scar the tissue of your lungs. Like,
not only the tissue of your lungs, but it'll scar your body.
Oh, it does. Well, I mean, if you're in it for hours,
yeah,
and
your skin,
and what I'm saying is they find that out based on the gum tissue,
the teeth,
the gum tissue. What I'm saying is the first time they cut this guy open, you would see chlorine damage to the lung right away. And you'd be like, this man drowned in chlorinated water. And that wouldn't immediately, right, get them there. But that is a really good point, right? Like it is, they would know right away, maybe even with the earlier victims, had they been doing a good job. Now, I'm just going to call out the thing I always call out. How did they get there that fast? Literally, before the cops have even covered the body, before the crime scene people have already gotten there, the FBI has arrived on site. How do you know this has happened yet? Spoiler alert.
you can ask Green that.
We'll ask Green later when we talk to him.
He wrote this episode.
He did write this episode. No, but I know it's the same way. In a season ender, you want to in a season opener, you want to have the dramatic scene when they show up, right? And we always love the scene, but I'm always going to say, yeah, but how did they get there? Because America does not, America, and I say this every time because it seems so primitive and people don't believe me when I say it, but it's true. America does not have federal crime reporting requirements. It doesn't.
Yeah.
If there's a murder, you don't have to tell the federal government that there was a murder in your jurisdiction.
Yeah, I know.
And
that's the whole point is, yes.
The whole point
Did they
of
have
Vicap
some kind of an alert on
yes.
bodies with stabs on it?
Presumably, yes. But my point is, they would only get that alert after a police report has been filed, and a police report hasn't been filed yet. The body is still in the beach.
Yes, and yes, and we always remember, even if it is Maryland,
yeah,
it is still a ways.
It's still
Quantico.
quite a schlep. Ocean City, Maryland from Quantico. It's a bit of a schlep.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not as bad as the worst one ever, which is the guy in the drug lab, the serial killer with the hitman, the first Hitman episode, where like somehow they have found out that this murder happened while the detectives are still walking around the crime scene, and he is flown across the country. Yeah, it was preposterous, but I mean, I always give that a call out. Now let's move on. I'm far from going to harp on this. Don't worry. This is not going to be a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes, I'm always
until next week.
Until next week when the same thing happens.
Yeah. Well, you've only got 54 minutes or whatever.
Exactly. Right. No. And they want to have, and honestly, it's great to see them showing up at that crime scene. It's a good looking crime scene, right? You get them out to the beach. You got a nice visual. You get the crashing waves behind them. You get a nice thing of them all lined up in front of here are the guardians, the line of guardians with a black crashing sea behind them. Like, I understand why they did it.
It looks gorgeous.
It does look gorgeous. It looks fantastic. I'm not naive. I know why these things happen, but I'm always going to ding people when realism falls apart. That's what I do. It's my own
it's
mental
your go-to
disorder.
is
it
what
is
it
my
is.
go-to. It's like it's a disorder, and I'm not going to pretend it's not a disorder. All right. So yeah, the crime this week is not particularly difficult to solve. I do like that all of the victims used various Airbnb services,
Yes.
and the portrayal of Airbnb services of being happy to look the other way. You know, if their thing are being used as the hunting ground for a serial killer because they want to avoid lawsuits. I enjoyed that.
Oh yeah, no, and that scene was where they called everybody in from the from the Airbnb website,
the various websites. Yeah,
yeah, and the guy who's running the whole thing is no, we're not a thing, not a thing.
It's weird. I found it preposterous when this exact same thing happened in Evolution season 1. Remember when they were talking to the in the Barbarian episode where they like get all of the people from the university and they have all the people from the university drive to Quantico so we can have the meeting in their office. It's like, but it's just from those like you could just go meet them there, but that would require getting another set. Like, again, I know why they do this, but the thing this time I found it more plausible because this time they are actively trying to psychologically pressure these people and put them in an uncomfortable environment.
Yes.
So it makes sense to say, no, we're the federal government. You have to drive across, X amount of hours from Washington, D.C., where you're in your lobbying offices. You have to drive an hour to Quantico, and you have to, go through the security checks to get into, the building. Like, we have to make you feel vulnerable before we start asking you questions.
Well, and not only that, but putting Aisha and Rebecca up high over top of them, right? It reinforces
100%. I love
it. It was a great visual to see how these people had to look up to them.
Yep. Oh, it makes perfect sense psychologically.
And so now they're doing their stuff, and then you had other people in the back in watching all the faces to see who was going to blink.
Yep. And I like the whole thing of having the cameras. So the idea is if you had and again, that's really smart in the way they present it, because we haven't seen them do this before. If you have like a bunch of other FBI agents, right, scanning the audience walking, it might make people feel more guarded. But if you just have these two people there and it's cameras doing everything else, people might assume they're not being watched. And again, they're less likely to control their faces. No, it's very well presented. I thought it was very smart. Yeah, I was quite happy with how this one played out.
Oh yeah. I mean, as we're talking about the bits and pieces of it, right?
Yeah.
It's
like technically very well put together episode.
Yeah.
No question. So they find out which service was used by all of these people. Right. Also, I do like them, just the rank hostility that they have towards all internet companies. Where it's like your only real business is selling people's privacy. Like, yeah, that's true.
We never we never give our lists to anybody. Oh yeah, right. Sure, we believe that.
No, and I just love that it's like, your entire business. I don't remember the exact line, but I was very happy with the line, which was essentially, your entire business is to get people to click an accept button, so then you can do whatever you want. Like, yeah, that's very accurate.
Oh yes, I just heard some horrible, like some stuff I haven't been following. Why Google got caught as a
have they done something even more evil recently?
Well, I don't know if it's if it's recent, but it is this business of their search engine, and then all of a sudden over the last few years, the search engine. This guy is doing a podcast on this stuff, and over the last few years, like it is true that it drove me crazy.
Oh, it's garbage now.
All of a sudden, Google got garbage.
Yeah,
and the reason why is they decided that Google users had flattened.
Right.
They weren't getting any more. So they weren't getting any more clicks. Right.
So they have to figure out a way to spend more time on a service.
Oh, wait a sec. Wait till you hear.
Please.
It's beautiful. So, and as the guy who's doing this podcast and stuff said, he says, look, they have 90%. Right?
Yeah.
And
of the
everything
market.
is filtering into of the market. Well, they can't get that other 10%. So what they decided to do was make it so that you wouldn't ever get really good options the first time you use
had
Google.
to search a second time.
So you would have to refine your search and research again. Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
they have
hilarious.
actually memos and meetings. They had big meeting about all of this.
Yeah, make this
And
now
how
that
to
we've
do
got.
this.
Well, no, but I mean that's the market. It's how all monopolies work. You get
Yeah.
people trapped on your service, and then you make the service worse.
Mhm.
Like that's how monopolies work. That's how all companies work. It's why you can't trust a corporation, because every
Yeah.
corporation has to to justify the loans it takes out. It has to grow 30% every year. Well, that's not possible. That's not possible.
not when you have
indefinitely.
90% of the share.
Exactly. When you already have, you can't then get up to, I'm going to do some math here. Wait. 117% of the share the next year. That's just not how things work.
No.
So yeah. No, it's, anyway. So yeah, seeing them take just passively, just as a little drive-by, brutally taking on this made me really happy. I'm not going to pretend it didn't. Made me super happy.
Yep.
Like that's who the real villains are here. Because you know what? When 3 people who have used your service turn up dead.
Well, in fact, there have been 5 people now.
Oh yeah, 5 people
6
now.
people now. You've got 6 people who have turned up dead.
Mm-hmm.
And the only commonality is they're using your website and they're in,
beachside locations.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so here's the fun part. Then they search for, they quite obviously say, okay, well, if he's forcing people to drown in pools, right?
Because we have gotten to the point now that they
We saw
recognize
that,
it was chlorine.
Yes.
It was chlorine. And so therefore they hadn't died he hadn't died in the ocean.
Yeah. Well, again, they literally, they didn't even know how he killed them, right?
Yeah.
Until they find the chlorine thing, they assume he was drowning them in pools. And so
in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they don't even know if they were drowned originally, but that was my point from earlier, right? All we know is they were killed and the stabbing happened. And again, the autopsy should have said the stabbing was post-mortem. That's a conversation for another time. Yes. But no, the important part is, and this is the part I liked, right? Luke immediately says, okay, well, this is a really specific MO. So this has to be tied to someone's background. So using the old adage that your first victim is going to be someone of convenience to you when you start killing. His first 2 victims were relatively close to one area, and then his next victim was 500 miles away.
Yeah.
So he probably lives somewhere in the vicinity. So they're like, let's check anybody who died in a swimming pool in this general area. And what do they find? A 10-year-old child who drowned his own family by covering the pool.
The swimming pool.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
That was a brutal reveal. Yeah, that one freaked me out a little. I'm not going to lie, because those pool covers, oh my God.
Oh, I hate them.
Yeah, they look very, very creepy. And yeah, and so this is ever since, honestly, and this is going to be a thing, ever since a little movie called Lethal Weapon. It's not an important part of the movie Lethal Weapon, but midway through the movie Lethal Weapon, they go to find the drug dealer who gave the drugs to the person who killed Amanda Hunsaker at the start of the movie, and he immediately starts shooting at them, and he ends up going through one of the pool cover and getting tangled up in the pool cover and almost dying. Well, actually, he does die. No, he drowns in the pool cover. It's not the bullet. He drowns because he gets tangled up in the pool cover. And I've been freaked out about pool covers ever since, because I saw that movie when I was too young.
Sorry.
That's fine. I'm not complaining. It's just that stuff sticks with you, Stuff you see when you're a kid really
never
does
mind.
stick with you.
Remember, I've told the story about my mother taking me to a movie when I was 2.5.
Yeah.
And therefore I had a fear of tunnels,
The movie is The Third Man, by the way.
The Third Man, right?
Yeah.
And not thinking that, but oh yeah,
You
yeah,
never knew
no.
where that fear came from. Then years later, you
No.
see The Third Man, and you're like, oh, okay. Here's what
Okay,
it
now
is.
I understand why I've always been afraid of specifically of tunnels with dripping water.
Yeah. Third Man, great movie, based on a novel by Graham Greene, her favorite author. So there you go.
You got to see. Everybody needs to see that
If
movie.
you haven't
That
seen
is
The Third
such a
Man,
good-
like you really owe it to yourself to see The Third Man. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. Orson Welles
Okay.
is amazing in that movie.
We're good. Okay, yeah, Orson Welles is just a stunner,
He really
and so is James Cotton. Actually, really
Joseph
good.
Cotton, but yes.
Joseph Cotton. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
no, just a great film. But yes, so meanwhile, we've been tracking this family who he kidnaps, right?
Well, no, you have to, like, what I really liked, right, was, later on,
Yeah.
right? He's taken somebody else. They're at the beach. They're celebrating
A birthday.
a birthday, the husband, father.
The father and husband of
Right.
the family. Yeah.
And so and they're taking a selfie, like they've given him this great present.
Yeah.
And so he sticks it in his
Little
pocket.
customized
and-
corkscrew.
Yeah. For
And then we
wine,
get
right?
they do the thing, and by the way, this is the correct thing to do, by the way, which is when you're taking pictures with a phone, or really with any modern digital camera, a lot of people who grew up with film try to be very careful with the picture they take, and I understand
Yeah.
that because you grew up with film. There's 32 shots on that roll, and that's it. The camera, you got 10,000 shots. So when it's time to take a picture, just take 8 pictures. One of them is going to be what you want. And they're doing it the modern
And you can
way.
delete the rest.
Exactly. You know?
I do that all the time.
Exactly. But you get this great moment, and it's a fantastic shot, thumbs up, where she's scrolling through the pictures and he's getting closer in the background. I'm like, yep,
Yes.
that's the shot I wanted. That's a fantastic moment.
Oh, watching him, and I'm just going, okay, well, at least they're going to see that, right?
Okay.
But you could just see him walking, right?
I know, I
Closer
loved
and
it.
closer to
Loved
them,
it,
and it
loved
was
it,
just
loved
like,
it.
oh shit.
And then immediately
then
they realize what happened. Boom, they're getting drugged.
And he just sprays something in their face. Now I can't remember what
we'll
it was.
talk
And had
about
the
what
team.
we'll talk about what it was later when I get into my criticism mode. But that's
Yeah,
another
okay.
conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, I love that. I love that
Yeah.
moment. I thought that was fantastic. It was shot perfectly. It was executed perfectly. Great scare scene. And
Yeah,
it's-
it was.
Yeah, great scare scene. So he drags them, and I mean, now we're just going to talk plausibility. How friggin' isolated is this beach that this man is able to drag 3 people 100 or whatever meters up the beach to his waiting car, one at a time? It's not like he has a staff of people to help him with this.
No, like, that kind of stunned me. Plus, it has to be far away.
Yeah.
It's in No, it's not in Ocean
And
City.
then
I can't even remember where that beach.
Where
They
that
don't
beach
tell
was.
us.
But he puts them in their van and he drives them however many hours back to where he
Back
lives.
to his home.
Exactly. So I'm
in
just saying.
Charleston or something.
Yeah, I think it was Charleston, but it's
No, it wasn't It was down in like South Carolina or
Something like that, yeah.
somewhere there on the ocean.
And so
as well.
I was like, how did nobody notice him dragging these people up the beach? But the important part is they have figured out. So we see this harrowing sequence where the father refuses to get in the pool because you're just going to die, and he gets shot. Ugh.
Yep.
Guys, just go. I hate to say it, but like, this is not the type of serial killer that you want to confront. No, go along with them and try to figure out a way out later, right? Because, ugh.
Yeah. Fine. Just use your brain.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's the man.
Yeah, no, you're right. And he's got to defend the family, and it's all
And he doesn't-
masculinity and blah, 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 blah. Like,
Yeah. And of course, I don't think that he because I kind of accept that this husband, yes, would make more sense
yeah,
for him to be, okay, let's all get in and we'll figure it out. Cause there are 3 of them
exactly.
one way or another. And, I don't even know if they knew that he had a gun because they are all shocked that he has a gun.
Well, yeah, but he's drugged them and dragged them here. And,
Yeah. So
you're right.
But anyway, what I'm just saying is that I can see him sort of underestimating because this is a young kid still.
It is.
He's in his 20s.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's
I understand the hesitation. Like I do, I'm
Right?
not disagreeing with you on that front. I understand the
Okay,
hesitation.
so
of
but he
taking
gets
him
shot.
seriously. He does get shot. Also, it's possible he did not have to drive these ones, this family, such a long distance. We never get it established that I don't think this family was someone he was stalking on Airbnb. I very much think that this family were victims of opportunity because he was
So
just
it might have
walking
been
down the
closer
beach.
to his home.
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think he was just walking on the beach, and when he saw someone that demographically matched his existing victims, he was filmed with this overwhelming desire to recreate the death of his family, and so
Yeah.
that's why they die. So I think there's a good chance this one was not actually a long drive and a stalking first. Again, the show doesn't make that 100%.
So that will settle that problem.
Exactly. That little problem we had, that one we can dismiss that immediately.
Yeah. And it might have been early in the season, so there was really nobody on the beach yet.
Exactly. We're just gonna assume that. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so
Yeah, we have removed.
so the father is now
60%.
dead.
And the other two go into the water, and they have to try to figure out
Tread
how
water.
tread water, was this episode of television inspired? And is again something we can ask Breen, but I'm just calling it now. Inspired by that iconic episode of Magnum PI, I assume. That's a very memorable episode of Magnum
Yes.
PI is all I'm saying. Like that
Yeah, it
episode
was.
where he's out in the kayak and a boat
Yep.
swamps him and the kayak goes and he gets clonked and the kayak goes missing and he has to tread water for 16 hours.
Ever.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a very memorable episode of television. Because again, there's no mystery that week. It's literally just Thomas treading water for 16 hours. And it's horrifying. It's a great
that
episode.
was-
It's a great episode of television, and I think anybody who's seen it, it's always going to be in their head a little because that's how good an episode of television is, and that's why I think it might have served as an initial, inspiration.
Well, you never know. We can always ask.
Exactly. We have that option, But yes, it's a very scary thing to imagine.
Oh, to watch those
Watch
watching
those
women.
I know, struggling. It's very
Yeah.
intense, especially after
And the mother?
like he goes for his puffer and they think they have a moment to themselves and she tries to climb out and then they have the cover put over them. Oh my God, that was so intense.
Well, it's that the daughter
Yeah.
tries to get out,
Mm-hmm.
thinking maybe she can run away, right?
Oh yeah.
But I'm not even. It's funny. I don't think the mother wanted her to do that
No.
because
Because obviously
that
the
is
guy's
a
got
stupid
gun.
thing.
It
The guy's
is.
got a gun, already killed the father, and I
Mhm.
actually was thinking, is the mother going to be left alone?
I know it was scary, but no, it's the
But
mother
no,
who
he
almost
forces her back in,
and
forces
then
her back
closes
into.
the lid.
Yeah, and so there's a gap of maybe about 5 inches.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
the top,
But the problem
and
is,
so we watched them.
previously, right?
Holy shit!
Yeah.
It was
there's-
definitely scary.
Super intense. Now, the thing is,
Yeah.
there's plenty of air down there, but
Yeah.
now there's this flap that is constantly putting pressure on you,
Mhm.
like that is literally holding you down, which makes it so much worse, and it makes all of this so much harder to do.
Yep.
So yeah, like that's it. It massively increases the threat and the stakes. So that's. Like I said, I've always been terrified of these things, and this episode does a very good
job of saying
explaining why.
you were right.
Yeah, to be afraid of this thing. And again, key moment in my beloved movie Unbreakable.
Oh God, that Unbreakable
Yeah.
is. Oh,
That's
I know.
a fantastic scene in the movie Unbreakable. Exact same thing happens. Trapped
Maybe
under
we should just
Go rewatch Unbreakable? Yeah, probably.
one day we should just talk about Unbreakable because I loved that movie. People
Yeah.
hated it, but
I don't understand why people
no.
didn't like Unbreakable. To this day,
No.
I don't understand why people didn't
no,
like Unbreakable.
it was perfect.
Doesn't make a lick of sense to me.
It was a perfect movie. Speaking of Morgan Freeman and Bruce Willis,
It's not Morgan Freeman, it's Samuel L.
No.
Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Sorry.
Excuse me, it was Red.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was our beloved Red from the movie The Shawshank Redemption.
Anyway.
All right, let's get to the point, which is everything about this sequence is fantastic. Everything about this sequence is just like chef's kiss, great. everything about the women trapped, the desperation, the actresses do a stellar job.
Yep.
Like, they do a fantastic job. He's very creepy. Like, the increasing desperation, their horrible plans, having to go to the husband's body to get the and again, setup and payoff.
I loved it. I loved it when she went and got the screwdriver out of his jacket.
Yeah, and it's smart, and she does the smart thing, because what you got to remember is it's a corkscrew, right? Now,
we forgot.
Oh yeah,
when the daughter jumps out, they throw.
Yeah, he throws the body in as well. Yeah,
the body in as well. Yeah,
with them to torment them while they're drowning, because he's a monster. And what I loved was that they established this, and they do the incredibly smart thing, right, of using the corkscrew as a handle to hold themselves up. Because what you got to remember is about every classy corkscrew like that is also going to have a knife on it, because with a good bottle of wine, you have to cut off the foil before you start using the corkscrew. And so theoretically, they could have just cut a hole in the top of the plastic. But he would have reacted to that immediately. They thought if they used the corkscrew to hold themselves up, he wouldn't notice it right away. Yeah, and their only mistake was not swimming to the far end of the pool before they tried that.
Yeah. And it was the daughter who was starting to get too tired.
Exactly. And so they had to do this.
So they did it so that the daughter could hang on to it. Then he did manage to see.
Yeah, because they did it too close to him. So he sees the top moving in a weird way and can see the metal thing poking out. Yeah. You've got the moment, though, right? Where the mother actually like swims down and tries to hold her up in such desperation. Again, like, it's everything about their attempts to survive. You watch it and you're like, this is exactly what I would do. This is the exact situation you can imagine how horrible it would be. Like, it's a great, completely relatable thing, because everybody's been scared of drowning. They talk about it in the episode. Like, what a giant percentage of people are just terrified of the water. And I'm like, yeah, with good reason. And then we find out what the killer's motivation is. Killers are made, not born. Because we find out that his father was a horrible, like a swimming instructor and a horrible disciplinarian who essentially like forced his son into the water until he could swim, pass a swimming test. And he kept almost drowning over and over again because he had bad asthma and had no lung capacity. Yeah. So completely. Obviously, I feel sorry for the mother and sister who died, but don't feel too bad for the horrible disciplinarian father. Don't feel too bad for the horrible disciplinarian father. Which is probably why
he shot the father, when he disobeyed.
He's angrier at the father. Yeah, rather than just pointing the gun and waving him in, because his real anger is aimed at his father, and when he sees a simulacrum of his own family, he has a chance to start working that out, Yeah. And he throws the father in with them to say, it's his fault that you're dying like this, which, it's brutal, but there you go. Everything about that part, I was very happy with. Now, let's move over to the Voight plot.
Okay, well, no. We should end it. They do get rescued.
Oh, yeah, of course they get.
Just in time. It's just remember the team comes in.
Yeah, because they have found the background. Just the previous year, the killer had installed a 7-foot deep pool in his backyard.
Yep.
Right. So with like no shallow end. And so they're like, well, this is definitely where he's doing it. So they race over to the house and they just in time to save the day.
And our newly apprenticed FBI agent who's got an orange
rubber gun. Yeah.
Rubber gun. Or weighted gun. But it's weighted, so it's like a real gun, but he can't have a real gun. But he does have a knife in his,
and he uses that to cut it open. So it's a nice
cut
touch
it open, and they
set
get
up and pay off. That's just solid script writing.
Yeah, and the scene where, because she gets shot, because once he sees the screw,
he starts firing into it.
He starts firing into the water, which makes the team run even faster because they hear the shot, and the mother gets shot.
Yes,
and so they get the daughter out, but the mother,
she's injured,
dying.
she's going to drown.
She
she starts
sees-
losing. Yeah, she starts losing
and her-
oxygen. Sees her
and then she
husband
sees
floating
her
away into the
husband.
light. It's a very nice scene.
Yes, he talks to her. It's not your time yet, and then you have the
They resuscitate
paramedics
her.
paddling her and resuscitate her.
It's
and
nice. Yeah,
It was that part of it was very, very nice.
very happy with that scene. I thought
Yes,
that
and,
I thought
you
that
know,
was
and then-
very well done.
And then to continue that, the very nice part is that at the very end, what's his face? Our Canadian guy, Tyler,
Yes, Tyler.
right? Tyler has found out where he's going to be sent, and it's like Alabama, or
Something like that.
Mobile, Alabama,
Yeah.
right?
And then we have here
And-
the preposterous idea that you can't be in the BAU until you're a supervisory special agent and you've been in the FBI for 10 years. And I'm like, Spencer Reed. Spencer
Yeah.
Reed. Spencer Reed, though. Also JJ. Also
Yes, oh,
JJ.
JJ. I was going to bring up JJ.
But
You know?
Spencer Reed is the much more egregious example of a guy who just got out of training and went straight to the BAU. So don't tell
Yes,
me
all those
that it
other
can't
people,
be done.
all those other ones that they brought in.
Yeah.
No, when they brought in Rachel Nichols.
Yeah, they just dropped it right in, literally from
Yeah.
the training organization straight
Yeah.
into BAU. Don't give me this. He's got to work in Alabama for 5 years.
Years, and then another 5 years as a
Ugh.
supervisory
Special
special supervisory agent.
Agent, come on, be
Yeah.
serious. Come on,
Okay,
guys.
but anyway, so they leave him sort of wondering now. Maybe they were just hazing him.
Oh yeah, I mean
Yes.
that is very much the culture of the BAU is hazing. So yes, I would
yes.
not be shocked if it turned out that was just a hazing situation.
Yeah. So now we're going to get to our main storyline because
Yes.
I loved the fact that they just did a little bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
Are fine. I mean, but to begin with David Rossi being called up again, having to explain,
Yep.
apparently somehow or another, the internal affairs is blaming him
I
for the
know.
fact that Voight
got stabbed.
got stabbed in prison.
Well, here's the thing, though, and what I'll say
You
is,
know?
I'm not saying this is a response to a criticism we made, because I made the criticism at the end of last season, and you agreed with me that David Rossi's speech to him about how the only way you get cred in prison is by taking down a hardcore prisoner. And I'm like, if you're a lifer in maximum security and you have no
Yeah.
chance of getting out, yeah, but David, this is minimum security. People want to keep their head down and get out as fast as possible. Like, and so you can imagine my delight when they specifically hear his monologue as a threat, which it was.
Yes.
Which, by the way, OPR is correct. That was a threat. Now, there's no proof that he sent those guys, but it's like, no one is going to randomly attack Voight for street cred in a minimum security
Minimum
prison.
security.
Someone
Gen
had
Pop.
to put, exactly, even if it is
He's
Gen
in
Pop.
Gen Pop.
Even exactly, like they're not going to do that. Now, my theory, of course, last season was that he hired them to attack him because he was going to say that it was too dangerous for him to be in prison and he was going to get let out. That was my theory. That turns out to not be the case. Somebody else hired them to do it. We still don't know who it was, though. But I will say that stabbing had arguably the worst investigation that any stabbing has ever had. Because
The
he killed-
BAU has, yeah.
I know, but 6 months go by without them
6
figuring
months.
out what happened? Because I want to point out, here's what happened. He was
Yeah, well,
attacked
no,
by
this is what
he
I
was
was gonna
attacked by
say.
3 guys and stabbed with a shiv and punched and kicked a bunch. And then but he stabbed all of them to death.
Yeah.
And so was there not an autopsy? Because it seems like they should not be the
Well,
first.
not only that, how in God's name did the Soko people miss the knife?
The knife!
The shiv that Voight used.
Especially because, and I can't stress this enough. So you've got these guys with like a little knife with like a 1.5 inch tip, and he was stabbed him a bunch. Then you got all these guys with like 3 to 5 inch deep gashes that are completely differently shaped wounds. And then if you searched Elias's room, you would find that he had broken off one of the blades of his fan.
His
so his
fan.
fan is missing a blade.
Blade.
How are they only now just figuring this out?
So somebody higher up has whitewashed this whole thing.
Yes, maybe. I think that could be the answer, is like,
Okay,
someone tried to
it has
cover up
to
the
be-
shooting.
They want to cover this up because somebody higher up is part of Voight's
Yeah,
thing. And
they want to
you know,
make sure he dies in prison.
because Dave, when Dave finally accepts, because he's just, I mean, the scenes with Dave and the IA person,
OPR.
OPR as they
Yeah,
call it, right?
Office of
Internal
Professional
Affairs.
Responsibility. And again, continuing the greatest lie that we have ever been told by fiction, that there is a group inside police departments that wants to stop bad cops. No, that's just not true. Because
So anyway,
I just want to remind everybody, here's a fun fact about OPR. They have never found there to be a bad shooting in the entire history of the FBI. Turns out OPR has discovered that the FBI has a 100% success rate in all of their shootings ever.
anyway, so what happens, right, is, and then, so they have to go back to that prison because there
Yeah.
are things in the report, and
Yeah, that
because
don't match,
David
and he's
hasn't
gotta look
even
into
looked
it.
at it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, he says he's looked at it, but we know he just skimmed it while drinking. Come on, it's David.
Yeah, come on. And Dave, and I thought it was really good. Like the whole David Emily thing again
Yep.
is really
Oh,
good.
no, they were fantastic
Where-
together. Yeah.
Yeah, because where he, and the writing, sometimes we can't complain.
No,
right?
not at
It's great
all.
writing, that whole thing where he says, no, but I haven't seen Voight anymore.
Yeah.
Now that he's in prison.
Yeah.
I don't want to open it up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to,
They tell
He's
us to want to reopen
terrified.
the wounds. Yeah, absolutely.
and so, but then Prentice talks him into it.
course,
And
'cause
then
he
he
has to.
looks at it and goes, so we're
this
going to
doesn't
have to
make
go
sense
back.
At all. Yeah,
Yeah,
I love
and
that.
so then, when they're looking, and then he finds, as I said, the Shiv, which means that there had to have been a massive cover up, and they did a cursory.
Yeah.
Because they don't care.
Yeah.
Because Voight is still alive. The three guys are still criminals. So what is this prison? They
Yeah.
don't care.
They don't care.
They-
They're not doing a real investigation. Yeah,
They're not
nobody
doing
did
a real investigation. But I do think that not finding that Shiv smacks of a cover
It
up.
does smack of a. I mean, yeah, the fact that like they pointedly didn't do an investigation really does
Yeah.
seem to be the message we're supposed to take away. We'll see if they decide to go that way. We'll see if they decide to explain that's what was going on. But it definitely seems that way. I'm going to agree with you on that front.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
but yeah, I enjoyed that. And now we've got the thing that most interests me, right, about the season so far. So Voight have been in a coma for the past 6 months.
Yep.
There was a moment, and I mean that I think we commented on a little, where I say she, as if people know who I'm talking about, where Penelope stares down Voight, right?
yes.
There's this key moment where she stares down Voight, and we commented on how odd that was
Yes.
at the time. And this is us. This is us making a mistake, because you got to trust that they're going somewhere with this. Because what we are now going to be asked to believe is that what she saw, because it turns out Penelope's been going to visit him almost every day
In his hospital.
in his
room.
hospital bed. And
sit with him.
sit with him, because she says she saw that he still has a soul. And if you watch him in that scene, and I don't know how closely they were planning this, but it's brilliant if they were planning it exactly this way. He does back down, and he does seem ashamed of what he just said.
Uncomfortable.
But
Yes.
also ashamed. And I think the
Yeah.
word ashamed is key, because pure psychopaths don't have shame, because shame is, in order to feel shame, you have to see yourself as other people are seeing you. And that requires some level of empathy. It just
and
does.
what happens is that this goes back to the fact that he was so much older.
Yeah.
When his uncle took him in.
And drove him to all of these murders.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so he couldn't shake it, but he still, the little boy that he was before his parents died.
Yeah, is still there somewhere.
Is still there. Somewhere inside him is what Penelope is trying to tell us.
Especially because we find out, and I am very interested to see where this goes. This next part goes.
Yep.
We find out that he had an MRI and his brain is covered in essentially ridiculous TBI injuries, like as if he had been playing football his entire life. And I'm like, okay, so what the hell kind of abuse did he suffer when he was younger, even more than we know about?
Yeah.
Because that is what it seems to be suggesting, and I'm very intrigued to see where this
Well,
goes.
it would be that his uncle would have beaten him over the head.
Absolutely brutalized him.
Yeah.
And essentially
to get him to comply.
To get him to comply with all of the murdering his uncle was doing, thus creating this situation where we've got literally a physical cause for some of his anger, for some of his rage, for some of his violence that he is not in control of.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean, it has been consistent with Voight's character from the start that he does not feel like that there are these urges that come from nowhere, and he has done everything he can to build a life independent of those urges and find healthy ways to keep it entirely separate, essentially to create a whole second life just for the violence. And I am so interested to see how they use this brain injury we've just introduced as part of that story.
Yeah, it's gonna. No, I can't wait for next week.
I mean, it's they have opened up a door here that I cannot wait to see where that door leads.
Yeah, because it would. Anyway, yeah, I mean, because it does go when you start talking. This is the complication that I always talk when they were always talking about. Oh, what did they call it at the time? But you know that the idea was that killers are made. Well, no, you drop a baby on its head.
Yeah.
Or you hit children, and hitting children over the head was pretty normal for a lot of people. Slapping them on the head, you know, maybe they didn't punch them on the head and they didn't hit them with hard things, but you get hit with a spoon on your head.
Yeah,
if it's consistent and continuous and in the wrong. All it has to do is hit the wrong part of the brain and damage the wrong part of the brain. As we know, the brain is this it is this the most complex organ probably in the world. The human brain. And but it is just an organ. You damage it and it doesn't always heal properly.
Nope.
So there can be, and this is what they're finding, is basically brain scarring.
Yes. And
we know from football from concussions. So this kid probably had more than one concussion.
It wouldn't shock me. And like how much of this violence he can't control are they going to say has to do with physical brain injuries? Yeah. It's a very intriguing idea. And I honestly can't wait to see where they go to explore this.
It'll be interesting to see if they have that discussion about responsibility then too.
Exactly.
Right? And the fact is that he is brilliant.
Yeah.
And so he can manage to, and he did manage to successfully, but you always saw him periodically, right? Being driven or getting angry. Like that was all there separate.
Yes.
Right. And then it was starting to bleed into his real life. What he considers his wife and his two daughters and the rest of it, the real life.
Yes.
That's the life he wants. That's the life he's structured up for himself.
The life he has built for himself.
Yeah. You know, and the life he wants.
Yes.
But it's starting to bleed into.
And he becomes less and less able to control it whenever stresses get too much.
Yeah. When he found a guy who looked like his,
yes.
You know, the
neighbor,
the neighbor, right?
Yeah.
So he has to find a guy who looks like the neighbor. You know, that's starting to get, not that anybody's going to make the connections, but that was an indication, right? That,
Oh,
that you
absolutely.
have a problem here. You could see him falling apart periodically.
Oh, yeah. And
That-
when they start, I'm so interested to see what they're going to say about, well, what does this have to do with his brain injury, like physical brain injuries? So yeah, this is a very intriguing path for them to
Yeah.
go down, and I can't wait to see what they do with it. It's exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, it may not, you see, it doesn't have to take up an awful lot
No.
because he's still guilty.
Of course he's still guilty.
Now, it's mitigation, so it may stop them from sending him to the electric chair or
Well, I mean,
the firing squad. Where
spoiler alert,
frig in the United States?
they're never going to do that. You seem to have forgotten that he has neither been charged with nor convicted of any murders. Everyone
right.
still thinks that the Jaws killer, right? Everyone still thinks the Jaws killer was the
Did it.
actual or put together the put together the whole online society of serial killers. Right?
Yes.
So no, he has nothing to fear from the legal system yet, which raises the question of, well, if he has nothing to fear from the legal system, like, what is this discovery that he has some kind of, not an excuse, but a physical cause for some of his madness going to do to him? So yeah,
Well,
like,
it's
very
and
interesting potential.
yes, exactly. And so no, it is as we're moving along. I mean, and the thing with Penelope
Yeah.
is, and of course Luke is just like, come on, girl.
Yeah, what are you doing?
You know, I know you believe this. All I see is a monster, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah.
Is it safe to say that, like, I know people miss Derek Morgan, okay? I get it. I love their relationship so much. I love
Yeah,
her
it's-
and Luke so much. They're so healthy. They're such good friends. They push
Yes.
each other, but they push each other in a respectful and, loving way. Like, it really is the relationship we wish that she had been able to have with Derek Morgan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so happy with their relationship and seeing how good they are together. Every time we get one of their scenes, it just makes
Yeah.
me so happy. So yeah, I remain so super happy about their relationship.
I know.
It's
And
just charming.
maybe she'll get back together with Tyler again.
Who can
You
say?
never know.
Who can say? All right, so yeah, lots to love in this episode. I had quibbles, but it's the first episode. They are setting the table, and the table setting is going to some very interesting places.
And okay, so far, but you sound like you're going to go.
No,
we have
now-
missed two sections.
Yes,
Still.
now we're going to cut back. All right, so next section. Go.
Okay, so what we see, we have seen he has one regular nurse
Yes.
at the night nurse. The night
Mhm.
nurse is pretty or she's a 3 to 11 nurse or a 4 to
Exactly.
12 nurse, that sort of thing. Anyway, she goes in to do the administration and stuff and check his vitals and things like that. And he's been in this coma, and all of a sudden he wakes up
Yep.
and he grabs her by the neck.
Well, you wake up. You wake up from a long coma. Who the hell knows what you're going to do?
Yes. And who knows which part of him has woken up first,
Yeah,
right?
okay, that's a conversation we're going to get into. Yeah.
He doesn't know. Well, I mean, he's completely disoriented,
Yeah, of course.
and his reaction would always be the
that
defensive
he's
reaction
under threat. Absolutely.
that he's under threat. So he grabs her by the neck. Now, I don't remember. We don't know whether he actually kills her. But
He
we do know
definitely doesn't kill her. They established
No.
earlier in the episode that the
Okay.
minute that alarm goes off, guys are in the room 5 seconds later.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot the fact that the minute his hand goes off the thing,
Yeah.
they're going to know he's awake.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's yes. So he's not going to have killed her, but he's awake.
But he is awake. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, because we didn't talk about that scene with Emily saying, "No, we've covered that. We've covered
Yeah,
that."
we covered that. Yeah.
And she lifts his hand off the thing, and
It's
they're
so
there
good.
within seconds.
Yeah.
Just a drill.
Yeah.
A drill.
She's freaked out that, he's only handcuffed on one side. Be more careful.
Yeah.
He could attack you. Well, it's like, the thing is, like, other than shooting Doug, they've never actually seen, and, kidnapping David, they've never seen him suddenly get violent in a place where there's a lot of witnesses.
Yeah.
Like, he kidnapped David privately.
Yeah.
He shot Doug privately. Like, he's generally smarter than that.
Well, yeah, but he's been in a coma for 6 months.
No, but my point is, like, they constantly treat him like he's a mad dog who's going to go nuts. And I'm like,
yeah, but that's because David, you see, that's only
because of how David thinks of him and his.
No, not only how David thinks, they all believe that he has set this up.
Yes.
And they all know that he did a lot of earlier killings himself.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so no, they are right. They are right to think of him more as a mad dog than a human being.
But my point is, like, he's already in the clear. He has gotten away with it. It's not like he wants to escape from the hospital.
But that doesn't change how the BAU sees him.
That's true. I'm just saying, the important part here is to think about incentives rather than, nature.
No,
like,
look, it's
nature.
why the nurse would never worry
that's true.
around him.
I think
okay.
That's true.
It's why the nurse or the doctors or anybody else, even though they keep him handcuffed, it's only one hand. Well, they're not going to really think about it. But the BAU knows this man is.
Yeah.
The minute he gets out, if he gets out and if he is conscious again, he will go back to doing what he did before.
Oh, absolutely.
And the reason that you have to always remember the BAU guys, except for Penelope, and
Yeah.
Tyler doesn't know, right?
Of course.
And neither does Rebecca. Okay, so those are the people that didn't have the experiences that Emily did, that
David,
everybody
yeah.
else had. Okay,
That's
with
true.
him. So and then you get. Now we have to come back, of course, to that last thing that our serial killer says.
Yes. And now let's get to the important part. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So the
You want to
serial
do
killer,
that.
I'll do this one. All right. So the serial killer shows up. They show up to arrest the serial killer, and he destroys the remote control for the pool cover in the hopes of drowning his victims. But, of course, Tyler cuts them loose. Also, there's definitely a button on the machine you could have just pressed. Like, it's not like they're ever going to build one of these things that only works by remote control. Come on. But that would waste time having to look for it. Just cut it open.
Yeah.
But the important part is he grabs the gun and he says to them that this was this always the way it was supposed to end? And he puts the gun to his head and he shoots himself. And the key part is they find out that he has been recording his victims' deaths and he has been sending them to an untraceable server. Like the data is getting encoded and sent to a server that cannot be tracked. And so the killer, when the team rolled up, on some level, has imagined that for whatever reason, who he was sending these tapes to, we don't know. It's the same kind of encoding that Voight used for his proof of death tape, so that's probably connected. But whoever they were sending it to, this is the key part, they have no idea, because this is so far, there was nothing about this guy in all of Voight's information. And this is the key part. The guy seems to be under the impression that maybe the people who he was sending the videos to called the cops on him. That's why he says, is this always how it was supposed to end? Yeah. And that is a really, really interesting idea. So who on earth is he dealing with? Right? Who on earth is he dealing with? And what is happening with Voight's system? That is the big question.
In other words, we don't know everything about Voight's system. Well, just like in last season, we didn't know everything. Like we learned the depth and the breadth of Voight's system.
Yeah, has never been fully explored.
No, and we still don't understand. Nobody understands why Voight did what he did.
No,
in the laundry room.
Yes. Yeah.
We have no idea because he ends up in this coma.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he did not assume he would end up in a coma, 6-month
Yeah,
coma.
like we still don't know if he called that attack on himself, or maybe the people who are also part of this network called the attack in on him. Like I said, my
and
idea
he
at
might
the time-
know
and he
that
might have
somebody is out to
information
get
about
him.
it. Exactly. So yeah, there are huge places this can go now that Voight's back. So
Yep.
I cannot wait to find out what they are. I'm very excited for next week. Now,
Exactly.
now I'm just going to be cruel. All right, now I'm just going to be critical. So here is what we are told he is drugging his victims with. I'm just trying to calm myself because of how much this pissed me off. Aerosolized fentanyl. Aerosolized fentanyl is what we are told. Now, I literally can't imagine a worse drug to try and subdue people with than aerosolized fentanyl. It gets you super high, which is a weird choice. It will not consistently knock you out immediately unless you were given such an overdose, like so much, that it gives you an overdose and will likely kill you.
Kill you.
This
Yep.
is and when you're using it as a spray bottle, you have no way of controlling how much the person
How much they're
inhales.
going to breathe. Yeah.
It is the worst conceivable. Like, there is no worse drug that you could possibly use to subdue people. And my question is, and this is something, again, question for Breen at the end of the season when we do a season review. Were they told to put an anti-fentanyl message in?
He would
Because-
never tell us if they were.
No, of course he wouldn't tell us if they were. No, because there is a
Come
real
on.
thing in the media right now where they're being told by the government to put anti-fentanyl messages on television. And they
Oh,
are being,
okay.
no, that's a real thing.
Yeah, no. I
They're
can
being
believe
given tax credits and promotional consideration for putting anti-fentanyl messages in. And I'm not going to sit here and defend fentanyl, okay? That is the furthest thing from. This is not an Albert Sirico did nothing wrong type of situation, okay? I'm not defending fentanyl use. I'm not defending fentanyl sales. But what I want you to keep your eye on is the fact that the way they used to talk about marijuana as a dangerous drug,
Well,
or
I was
crack as
I
a
was
dangerous
going with
drug,
the
crack epidemic, blah, 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 blah,
yes.
blah. The thing is, the government from time to time uses the threat of a hot new drug as a way to attack a community. Now, you can go back to the chief of staff, Richard Nixon's chief of staff, right? Talking about this, how that what he said is we couldn't make it illegal to be black. We couldn't make it illegal to be a hippie and an anti-war person. Because the big things they were dealing with was, the riots, in the black communities, quite understandable riots, if I do say so myself.
Black Day in July.
Exactly. They were dealing with riots and they were dealing with the anti-war protesters. And what he said was, we couldn't do either of those things, right? But what we can do is, we know that there is a lot of heroin use in the black community. And we know that all anti-drug activists are using marijuana, so we can start pretending that there is a massive drug crisis, and we can use arresting people on drug crimes as a way to attack the communities we actually want to attack.
Yep.
Right? And the original marijuana scare, from which Research for Madness, right, was just the government and the media attacking Mexican immigrants. Why do you think we call it marijuana rather than cannabis? It's because that's the Spanish word for it, and they were trying to attack Hispanic people. That's why so every drug crisis, what were they doing? Essentially Reagan, and, a couple people before him, but mostly Reagan, destroyed the inner cities, right? He destroyed the inner cities, as did, a lot of industrial policy going back into the 70s. But Reagan, put the final dagger in the heart of unions and destroyed the inner cities. And so you're like, okay, you're going to have a lot of unrest there. So let's pretend there's a crack epidemic, and everybody who's causing problems there, it's not because of poverty. It's not because there's no jobs. It's not because they're being heavily policed. It's because, it's this mystic drug crack, right?
Yes, and all those crack babies.
And all those crack babies and all, right? And how crack was 100 times more potent than than cocaine. So if you got caught with 10 grams of crack, that is the same as being caught with a kilogram of cocaine. So if you have 10 grams of crack, you got to go to jail for the rest of your life. All of this nonsense and all of these lies, right? All to oppress a community. And right now that's happening with fentanyl. If you are part of the group of people who are talking about how fentanyl is this scourge and fentanyl is this horrible drug, you are the same as the people who talked about reefer madness in the 20s. You are the same as the people who talked about, how pot was going to destroy a generation in the 60s. You were the same as the people.
Never forget LSD.
LSD, right? But you were the same as the people who talked about crack babies and the crack epidemic and the crack generation and super predators.
And your
in the
brain
80s.
on drugs.
Exactly.
I still see the friggin' egg in the
I
frying
remember,
pan.
but that's what I'm
Holy
saying.
shit.
I know. The fentanyl crisis of today is the same artificial law enforcement media concoction. Now, I'm not saying fentanyl isn't killing a lot of people. It is, because it's incredibly cheap to make. And so unscrupulous drug dealers, instead of just when they're cutting heroin, they can make it more powerful by putting fentanyl in there. When they're making ecstasy, they can make it more powerful by putting a little fentanyl in there. And that means you never know how much fentanyl is in a pill. Now, the solution for all of this is regulation and legalization. Not even really, because if there was a government, if I had to go to some guy on my block to get an aspirin, I would have no idea what was in the aspirin. And ecstasy and fentanyl are the exact same way. Because these are controlled, sellable, purchasable drugs, I can go to a store and buy an aspirin and I know exactly what is in that aspirin. And I know it's not a popular opinion, but if there was government sold and regulated fentanyl and heroin and cocaine, you would see deaths from this stuff fall off of a cliff because people would know exactly how much they were getting.
And if you had safe injection sites, as they used to be called.
Yep.
But now
You
they
would
had
see deaths
expanded their
falling
mandate.
off of a cliff.
People could buy their drugs and then take it into the site and they would test it for fentanyl.
Yes, they would.
That's what they were doing, like in Vancouver, and that's what they were doing in Canada, in Ontario, and probably in Quebec and the rest of it. You would take the drug.
Yep.
You could take your drug and have it tested. If it wasn't what it was supposed to be.
Yep.
Right?
They would let you know and they would take it away and dispose of it.
Yep. So that you wouldn't die. Now, mind you, of course, there's then the dealer issue and how do you get your money back and that, but that's not.
Hey, do you know how we could deal with that problem? Free heroin. Just put it out there. Free heroin. Stop charging money for heroin. There, problem solved. I've solved all the problems. Free heroin. Done. I've eliminated the dealers. I've eliminated the crime. And all it took was just a little bit of free heroin. Anyway, the point is, Criminal Minds is part of a conspiracy to help.
Let me put it this way.
Yeah.
Given that this is the week that they said they're going to put 100% tariff on movies and everything that's made outside of America, and I'm just going, holy shit. Yep. Everybody's going to get a VPN.
Yep, I know. It's going to destroy their entire entertainment industry.
And there goes
Except
Netflix.
Maybe for Criminal Minds, which is made entirely in America.
The United States.
But the weird part,
Oh, no.
But the problem is, shows like Criminal Minds are economically viable because they get sold all around the world. And what if Trump's idiotic 100% tariff on movies made outside the United States means all these other countries say, fine, we're just not going to buy your TV shows anymore.
Yeah, we're going to, you remember that globalization thing that was going to make everybody American?
Yeah.
Guess what? We're now going to cut that too.
I know.
Like, you think you're being isolationist? All of a sudden, we'll never have Criminal Minds again, right? But look, it's the same idiocy. We were talking about the drugs. The same thing with, Trump and his stupid fentanyl thing, right? With Canada. And, you're going, but 40 fucking grams of fentanyl went into the United States.
Meanwhile,
talk about the guns that come into Canada.
No, but literally hundreds of pounds of fentanyl are moved from America to Canada all the time. You're the one who are sending us the drugs, you morons.
And then we'll talk about your guns.
Oh, the guns are a whole other conversation.
Well, that was the president of Mexico.
Yeah. Okay, you
Yeah,
stop
okay.
sending guns here, and we'll stop
Yeah.
sending sending
Yeah.
drugs there. And his, of course, idiotic response: "We don't sell guns. Sell
Oh,
guns.
yes, you do.
Are you insane? The Colt Armaments Corporation doesn't exist as a company without like the 60% of their guns that are sold to Mexican drug cartels. They're just not even a company if it isn't for illegally smuggling their rifles to Mexico. That's their number one consumer, is illegal smuggling to Mexico. But yeah, it's a questionable situation. But anyway, the thing is, I don't begrudge, okay? I don't begrudge a TV show being told, look, you have to put in an anti-drug message. But I just want everyone to, when they hear those anti-drug messages, remember that this is the government propagandizing you, and ask, okay, why does the government want us to hear this message? Because remember, Criminal Minds already did a terrible fentanyl episode. And it was one of their it was OxyContin at the time. But
Yes.
that's the point. They just changed the name of the drug they're angry about. Right? Right?
Yep.
They did their Oxy episode, and it was, how shall I put this? Complete garbage.
Yes. Go back and listen to us.
You can
talk
listen to
about
our
it.
thoughts about it if you'd like.
Yes.
But the thing that bothered me was, they're like, the drugs are the worst killer we've ever seen. No, the drug companies are the worst killer you've ever seen.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing. And now we're talking about other stuff, but Matlock, right? It's
Yes,
a CBS
actually
show
taking
too,
on
I
the
think.
drug companies. Yeah.
Yeah, taking on the drug company.
Yeah. But of
So
course,
it's
I know, and it's nice that they're doing that, but I mean, how do I put this? They're taking on fentanyl a decade after fentanyl isn't the problem anymore. They're not, they're fighting the last,
Oxycodone.
I said fentanyl. They're
It's
taking on
oxycodone,
oxycodone, a decade after it's not the problem anymore. They're fighting the last war. And it's good to see drug companies being attacked. But it's like, right now, the problem is not drug companies. The problem is the United States government using the quote unquote threat of fentanyl to inspire racism against Mexico and China. That's
and
what we're doing.
Canada.
Well, no, but when he tried to use it, to be fair, he only tried to use it as a way to get them racist against Canada. It didn't work. But but you're right. He did try to make people racist against Canada based on fentanyl.
It's, you
It
know,
was, in a presidency that is known only for the dumb things he says and does, that was like the dumbest.
well, no, I mean, really, because there are so many businesses now in the States are sitting there going, say what?
I know.
And the thing was Kentucky bourbon. I don't know if we ever talked about it. But it was
Probably
just
not.
Like the poor guy in Kentucky, he says, where am I going to sell my Kentucky bourbon?
Yeah.
Where am I going to sell my bourbon now?
I
If
know.
Canada's taking it off the shelves,
Yep. Oh,
You know?
it's so funny.
you know,
It is
it's not
so
like
funny.
it's this lack of understanding about we are their
Yeah.
biggest
Trading partner.
trading partner.
And
that's
what
it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, well, never mind. He put tariffs on Saint Pierre and Miquelon, which is this tiny, tiny, tiny little island,
Yeah.
and it technically is French, like France,
Yeah.
right? Not Quebec French, but France.
Yeah. It's part of France.
technically,
Yeah.
yeah. But then again, it has a close connection with the constabulary and stuff of Newfoundland and Labrador because it's closer to them.
There's literally, he put a tariff on an
75%.
island of 2,000 people
Yeah.
that the CBC just started making a TV show about.
Yeah.
Like, that is how crazy this is.
And you're just sitting there going,
What?
yeah, and it's 75% because
Because they
but
don't
you
buy
guys-
anything from, because Americans
Americans don't
doesn't
buy
buy
anything
anything
from-
from St. Pierre and Miquelon, an island of 2,000 people who, because of some ridiculous deal in the 19th century, France got to keep, after the War of after like the Napoleonic
No,
Wars. I don't remember
earlier.
exactly. Oh, you're right. It was 18th century, and after we took Labrador. Right, we took Labrador. Canada took Labrador and Newfoundland, obviously, but they got to keep St. Pierre and Miquelon
Pierre
for
and
some
Miquelon.
reason. So it's this tiny little fly speck of 2,000 people that, like, people come from Newfoundland on a ferry, and that's their only business. And of course they import stuff America because there's stuff you can only get from America, but they're not producing anything for America to buy. What would they?
Except if you watch the TV show,
Yeah.
Guns and Drugs
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff
guns and drugs, obviously. Oh my
are
God.
being run out of Saint Pierre and Miquelon by this horrible guy called Gerard or something.
Yeah, because there's a legal loophole because of course the Canadian government can't stop there because they're a French territory. So like, I mean, on the plot of the show, it actually makes sense. It's just kind of
Yes.
preposterous to watch.
Yeah, no, but it's fun.
Oh, I love the show. I'm not complaining
Yeah.
about the show, but it's very silly that show
To
has
think.
become part of an international crisis. That
Well,
show.
what happened? No, because it started in fall. And that's, of course, not the reason why it's because
no.
the CBC has a show about it. It was the fentanyl. It's putting the tariffs on Saint Pierre and Miquelon.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that this show is really going to become a big hit.
Oh yeah. I mean, as I'm sure they're doing a second season. And so if they do a second season that loudly starts talking about how, they're being attacked by America. Yeah, I think the show's got a real potential.
Yeah, I'm going, well, after Schitt's Creek became the biggest hit
Yeah. That
for the CBC.
yeah, ever. This one has a chance to be a huge hit too. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
I
then
very
they'll
much
go
would
back.
like it too.
And then they'll start watching. And maybe that's why Trump's putting the 100% tariff on.
Keep people from
God,
watching
help
Canadian
me.
television.
People are watching Canadian television finally
Yeah.
outside of Canada.
Yeah, I know. Well, we got a lot of good shows. We actually have a lot of good shows now. It's great. All right, so
Okay.
we're going to call it here. We have started talking about Canadian television. Sorry for getting this far, but I'm sorry. I can't let the fentanyl propaganda
Well, when they
slide by.
create, all I can say this: when Canada just creates its own shows instead of trying to mimic,
Yes.
and I can talk about 2 or 3 of them, trying to mimic American shows,
Yeah,
because you
then-
can't transform them.
No.
Then the shows are really good.
No, but you can steal a Canadian show, Cold Case Files, and turn it into the American show Cold Squad, pretty shamelessly. But that's a whole other conversation.
That's a different conversation. Yeah, because then they just change everything so radically. Come on, look
Yeah.
at what they did to Doctor Who
Oh my God. Oh,
when it hit
Doctor
the
Who.
States, right?
Well, it didn't
Oh,
hit the States for
jeez.
long. All
No.
right, so we're gonna if we want to
This-
continue this, that's why God invented Sunday shows.
Sundays, though, Sunday shows.
So let's head back and say, hey, oh
We're
my
glad
God.
you're back.
We are glad.
We're happy.
so happy you're back, Criminal Minds. You have no idea how happy we are that you're back. Hopefully
And
it's been clear.
this is a bright
It's a
light
good
in-
episode. It's a really we got stuff
Yes.
going on, man, and we needed Criminal Minds back, and it came back. And you know what the best part is? Knowing
Yeah.
that there is such faith in this show
Mhm.
that right now they're already shooting season 19. Or it's like
Are
they're
they
about to
shooting
start.
it, or-
They're about to start production. Like
You're kidding.
they're about to start production on season 19. That's how, right? It's going to be like a week or two or something like that. Like, that's how much faith the people have in this show and how beloved this show is. And honestly, for all my whining about, for all my complaining about, the way in which it's propping up some truly awful propaganda, I'm going to say it. I'm happy that it's back, and it is a joyful show to watch. I'm super happy that it's back, and I can't wait for the rest of the season. And more importantly, I can't wait for season 19. Like, we already have a whole other season to be excited about. This season ain't even over yet.
It just started.
That's my point.
This
Oh,
will be the bright spot every
Like,
week for the next,
for the next
9
10
weeks after
10
this.
weeks after this. And I want to point out, like, I know they're not going to do this, but how amazing would it be if, like, this became like The Bachelor or oh God, what is it called? Survivor, where they just do 2 seasons a year, Or if not a year, like, what if we got a new season of Criminal Minds every 8 months instead of every 12 months? That'd be
Well,
something
people
else.
would watch it. Well, if it's pulling in, I mean, God only knows what's going to happen
Yeah. But it's like,
in the future.
because
But
technically, I just want to
hopefully,
point out that is what's happening now. Because
Yeah.
let's not forget, we watched the last season of Criminal Minds last summer, July, June, July, August. This is starting a month and a half earlier. Now, it's not 8 months, like I said, But
10.
it is. We only had to wait 10 months for the new season. Like, what if the next season starts in like December, January, February? Like, we might actually continue having to wait less than a year between seasons, which is something that I was saying you normally only get in reality television where it's so cheap and quick to produce.
Right.
So yeah, like this is a really good sign for the future of the show. A really good
I'm
sign for the
happy.
future of the show. All right, so that's that. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling related fiction you can clue us into so we don't have to start watching Dexter next year, let us know. We're looking down the barrel of becoming a Dexter podcast, and we're not happy about it.
Yes, there isn't that much Josh Stewart stuff left.
No, we're gonna watch the rest of Dirt. We're gonna watch all of Dirt. We're gonna watch the superhero show he was on, and then we're gonna be running out of Josh Stewart content. So we're gonna see what happens there. But yeah, clue us into anything. If you are listening on an app, a podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hi, thanks. Rate, review, and subscribe. That's how people find out about the show. We'll see you back here next week for more Criminal Minds. But until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
Have a good week.